Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Next Level. My name is Chris Baglio, and I am CEO of Rocket Growth Agency and Business Development Executive with Urban Creative. And my awesome co-host today is
Dr. David of UCS Advisors and Investor Relations. And I am super excited for today's guest, Chris, because today's guest is Tony Gallo of Sapphire Risk Advisory Services. And Tony and I have been to a bunch of conferences together all around the United States. And Tony is also presenting at NECANN Boston. But more importantly, Chris, there's a reason why I'm wearing this special Dr. David hat. And we're going to talk about today's show. But before we talk about today's show, Chris, can you just tell them about our seminar on March 19th at 9 a.m., how to raise your social capital to raise capital? What do our listeners are expecting? And then let's get the show started.
Absolutely. So what you guys can expect is at this seminar, we're going to be delivering 3 hours of high valued content. So you definitely don't want to miss it. If you can go to NECANNextlevel.com to get your tickets right now, that's what you want to do. So what are you going to learn in this seminar? Well, you're going to learn how to network better. You're going to learn how to leverage those relationships. You're going to learn how to raise money. You're going to learn how to present in front of investors. You're going to learn how to put your pitch deck together. All of this in 3 hours and even more. So I'm just giving you guys the tip of the iceberg here. And this is the second time we're presenting this. We're super happy to be coming back to NECANN Boston. And we look forward to seeing you all. So if you want to get your tickets, reserve them now, NECANNextlevel.com. You can use the link in the description or the show notes to get that ticket. And with that, let's get to our interview with Mr. Tony Gallo. I am super excited about our next guest. We've got Mr. Tony Gallo, Managing Partner of Sapphire Risk Advisory Group here in the Next Level virtual studio. Tony, how are you, my friend? Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here, Chris.
We're really excited to have you on our show and to talk to you all about, what you're doing, what you've been involved in, and of course, all the great things you've got going on with NECANN Boston. So thanks again for spending some time with us today.
No, very excited. One of my favorite events in cannabis, I've been in the industry for 9 years, is the NECANN Boston show. It's definitely a must for me. And been going there since 2016 was my first event. And every year it just gets better and better, and the people I meet there is just definitely an event that you must go see.
And talking about NECANN Boston, Tony, you and I have known each other for a while, and I know what you do. But for our listeners, before we get rock and rolling, talk about Sapphire Risk.
Sure.
Tell us what you guys do, and talk about your success record you've had both domestically and internationally.
Sure. So Sapphire Risk is the oldest national security consultant company in the cannabis industry. We started in 2013, and in that time we worked with over 500 cannabis clients in 35 states, including Switzerland, Portugal, and some other European countries. Most of our focus is the security field of it. We do three things in the cannabis industry. We help people with their applications. We focus on the security section, which is keeping us very busy right now on the East Coast. We do physical security designs and build-outs. We just finished building out a beautiful location, Trade Routes in Wareham, Mass. I'm looking forward to, when I come to NECANN Boston, taking a ride down there and seeing Jesse and Carl down there in that area. And then we also do policies and procedures, the ones that keep you in business: opening and closing, cash management, employee theft, robbery awareness, all those normal things that you would have in any other retail business. So very excited about where we are and where we've been going lately in the last couple of years.
And Tony, you bring up a great part. You bring up about more than just putting in a security system. Something that Chris and I talk about at our seminar, how to raise your social capital to raise capital, which is happening on March 19th at 9 a.m. As we talk about failure to plan is plan to fail. And when it comes to doing security, it's more than just buying cameras and getting a safe. So Tony, do you guys actually get involved with the architect plans at all? Do you get involved with working with the towns at all and going to town hall meetings?
Yeah, so we actually start with a lot of our clients right at concept, where they've been sitting around, they decide they want to get into the cannabis industry, or they are in the cannabis industry and want to expand into other states. And we're one of the first companies that we can receive phone calls. Currently in Jersey, I'm working with over 52 clients in the next round of applications that are coming out, and we help them not only when it comes to the security part of it, but how to design their dispensaries. In that period of time, we've built out the security of over 72 cannabis facilities. So we work closely with their architect team. We work very closely during their application phase when it comes to bringing in a law firm, an architect, a GC, performer. That whole gamut of that. We do a lot of that involvement with them also. So uh, getting involved, and I'm going to be speaking at NECANN Boston on March 18th at 2 o'clock about security actually after you actually have won your application. I think that's one of the components there. And like you said, David, it's important for people to understand that designing your security and even passing the state regs without a security strategy down the line, you're going to have a very difficult time maintaining margin. And that's really what a business person's there is to make money, to be profitable. So it is an all-inclusive program that we work with.
And for the listeners, once again, Tony's speaking at 2 p.m. Friday, March 18th. I've seen Tony speak before at several conferences. Tony and I attend a lot of the same conferences around the country, so we tend to see each other a lot. I will say, if you have not seen him speak, I would highly recommend it. And Tony, I'd like to talk about this aspect of your business, but you will describe it better. Is it true that your company can come in and kind of do like a criminal assessment on how actually by opening a dispensary or a potential grow, crime rate can potentially go down? And you guys can somehow do some type of analytics with that? Is that accurate? Am I describing that right?
So we do about one city council law enforcement meeting a week
Okay.
nationwide. And one of the components that always comes up is if I open up, let's say, a dispensary or retail location, crime's going to go up in that neighborhood. And actually, statistically, crime comes down simply because if you think of what most states require, it's a very inclusive security program, cameras, lights in the parking lot, a guard usually at the front entrance. All of these components restrict and reduce the crime in that neighborhood. And a lot of times, a lot of law enforcement who initially have some concerns about a cannabis facility entering their town find that there's a value to it from there. Find that there's an extra set of eyes sometimes even for them out there in those areas where they may have been having problems in the past. So, and we discussed that, and I understand. I understand that concern. I mentioned the big four, which is alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and the pharmaceutical cannabis industry. Those four businesses I just mentioned have a very desirable piece of merchandise that you do not want to get out in society, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, guns, cannabis, Oxycontin. So, the society has a very big basic interest, much more than they would, say, a bicycle store or a jewelry store.
And those are all really great points, and I'm happy to bring that up. One of my good buddies lives in Massachusetts, and they were having a town meeting whether or not to allow a grow facility. And he's like, "Crime's going to go up. We're going to get all these derelicts to come here and this and that." And I'm like, no, that's not really accurate. He's like, "No, you don't understand." I'm like, "Listen," I go, "You ever heard of a company called Sapphire Risk?" He's like, "No." I go, "Listen, if this company hires them, they're going to show you all the stats how actually your crime rate's going to go down."
No, no, and we get it a lot, and it's understandable. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's not something that has actually happened, and statistically, it's been a godsend.
So you've been to a lot of NECANN Boston. So what brings you back year after year to go attend and also to be a speaker at?
So we're a business ancillary business company, and we focus on the business of cannabis. Now, I fully support all the efforts that else is making in the value of the plant and communicating that in the growing of the plant. But I look at it strictly from a pure business point of view, and we offer that service. And if I had a look at any uh, um, expo or conference nationwide from a business to business, I would see the NACAN Boston one is the number one, even more than any others that you would think. You would say, oh,
Hmm.
they have much more attendance, and
Right.
and it's focused from business to business. I go to business that sometimes are business to consumers, sometimes business to activists, sometimes but for the most part, if it's a business show, and especially if you're on the Eastern Seaboard, NECANN Boston is the show to go to.
And I think it's
Yeah.
really interesting too. Attending every single Nikan Boston myself, how it keeps growing and growing, and also to see the local state companies, the New England-based companies. Now you're also seeing companies coming out from the West Coast,
Hmm.
which which
Yeah.
which I, which I think is phenomenal. And talking about East Coast versus West Coast, once Tony, you and I have been on conferences in cannabis on both coasts. And there's, in my opinion, there's always something a little bit different between the East Coast and the West Coast. So my question to you is, when you attend an East Coast conference, specifically in New England, how is that conference different than a traditional conference on the West Coast?
So if you look at the cannabis industry and how it's migrated, for the most part, it started in Colorado or California, you can say. It spread to Oregon, went to Washington, and then started migrating eastward. The initial industry was learning. So when you look at Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, these are states that were learning the industry, and what you see as it crossed the Mississippi and got to Ohio and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, Massachusetts, is that they learned from the mistakes that were made from a business point of view that came out of Colorado, Washington, Oregon. And the East Coast is very much more restrictive. You see it even from my point of view, from security stats, the less uh, crime issues on the East Coast because it's much more restrictive than it was on the West Coast. And doesn't
Mm.
mean that the people on the West Coast don't take it seriously, but it's the way that each state started to put those procedures in place. So when I speak to people on the West Coast at a conference, I say in California or Oregon or Colorado, I have to talk to them more from what they currently have in existence and how they can upgrade to something such as a stronger safe or a better robbery awareness program, or where on the East Coast, these things are already mandated by the states. So they're not going to have those problems.
Very well said.
Yeah.
And just so you know, Tony, because of our history, I made sure that today's interview was out of our Portland, Maine location. It's therefore we're in the front. And then because of of what you do, I made sure we're the special Dr. David lighthouse
Ah,
There it
because
is.
open up a cannabis business can be very murky, and you got to make sure you see that light. And
Yeah.
Sapphire Risk and Tony Gallo and your team is that light to sit here to make sure just showing you the right direction through all the mess and all
Yes.
the rough murky waters. So that's my
Yeah.
analogy for you. So I'm wearing this today.
Love it.
Um,
Hey,
no,
Tony,
so
I gotta. I'm sorry,
yep.
Dave. I was
No,
gonna
you
say.
go,
I
Chris.
guess I have a quick question for Tony before we segue into your next question. Going back to a conference like NECANN, and you've been going to NECANN for a while, and you've been to other conferences. For anybody out there who's watching or listening to this, and maybe it's a first time they're going to a conference like NECANN or their first conference in general, what kind of advice would you give them for maximizing that time so that way they can use their time wisely? Where's the best success that you've seen for yourself that you could share with somebody that's never gone to a conference like NECANN before?
so first thing I would recommend, if anyone's going to go to NECANN Boston, wear comfortable walking shoes because you're going to walk. And get yourself one of the flyers, look and see who you want to visit, and mark them off prior to going into the expo, because once you go and you start seeing vendors, and once you start walking down these aisles, you're going to be wanting to stop at every one, and you're going to wind up, it's like going to Disneyland. Have a plan, a game plan, that these 5 or 6 vendors I have to go see. I need to go to this seminar. It's important for me to be there at the 11 o'clock point of that. Because without a plan, sometimes you wind up missing out on that, especially ones of this size, and the amount of vendors that are there that you really need to see, and the amount of seminars that you want to see. You'll find that you really just don't have enough time. But the key is the walking shoes.
I like that. It's like that's really solid advice, and that's something too I've learned over time is like, yeah, have some nice comfortable shoes for sure. It goes a long way. It goes a long
Forget
way.
the shoes. I'm wearing sneakers.
Yes,
Like
sir,
people are like,
sneakers.
Dr.
Yeah, there
David,
you go.
you're wearing a sports jacket. Why are you wearing sneakers? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you know how much we're on our feet today? How much we're walking? Yeah, I'm wearing sneakers.
Definitely,
Yeah, for sure.
definitely. Yeah.
So Tony, something we ask every guest here is, what is one of your favorite NECANN Boston stories?
It's interesting that you're on today, because it includes you in my story.
Right.
Now, not to pitch all of the businesses that are in that area, and there's a huge amount of businesses to eat and drink at, and you really don't even have to leave around the convention center with Newberry Street and all the other streets around. But there's a little place called the Summer Shack. Since 2016, it's been the tradition to go to the Summer Shack and go and have dinner one night, which I will be having dinner Friday night at the Summer Shack. And I'll be with Chris and Dave. And Dave and I meet there. So last year I met Mark, who runs NECANN. He was there with his group afterwards. So it's a tradition. I don't care. You want to go somewhere else, that's great, but I got to go to the Summer Shack, and I got to go hang out there. And we have a tradition of doing a shot of tequila. What kind of tequila is that, Dave?
We've been doing Patron the last several years.
Patron. And we toast, and we call it a shot of inspiration. Now, we may go to this event or to dinner with a group of people that we didn't go last year with, and we may not go next year with, but everybody there has to do that shot with us. So
Yep.
it's always, it's always a highlight of going out there. Like I said, I will be there Friday night. You want to come and have a shot of inspiration with us? By all means, please meet us there, and then go out and enjoy the rest of Boston.
Exactly. And I remember when we first met there, and you're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing a shot. You're like, why? I'm like, a shot of inspiration. Like, you know what? We got to loosen up a little bit. Tequila's an upper, not a downer. You're like, okay.
Right.
I'm like, you could do it. And now, the rest is history. And what's funny is that to add on to that, Tony and I were at another conference, and we being at the same happy hour afterwards, both talking with clients, and Tony's like, Dr. David, you're here. Come on over. Let's have a shot of inspiration. People are like, why? I'm like, oh, it's tradition. We're together.
That's it.
Gotta do it.
That's it. Yeah, you can't change tradition. That's it. Once it sticks, it sticks. You gotta keep going with it.
No, definitely. And that's why I said it's like the highlight. I already mapped out. Okay, Friday I'm going to speak at 2:00. Then I'm going to go to Summer Shack. Then Saturday I'm just going to enjoy the event and myself and walk around and meet people there, and then go forward from there.
Excellent. So let me ask you this before we wrap up. What do you want the listeners, in your opinion, to get out of this? Whether it's NECANN Boston, whether it's Sapphire Risk, whether it's just a general piece of business advice, what do you want our listeners to get 1 or 2 key things out of this?
It's interesting. Yesterday, I actually spoke at Texas A&M down in College Station,
cool.
Texas, and that is an emerging market. Texas could be a while down the road, but it's an emerging market. I'm going to be speaking in Boston and at the NECANN Boston, and the same comment and the same advice I gave to them at A&M yesterday, and that I'm going to give in Boston, is a lot of people sometimes do not understand the fact that before you can buy any of that stuff that you're going to see at NECANN Boston at the expo, before you do any of that, or any designs, whatever, you have to win a license. And sometimes some of my clients, I have to keep them on track to understand what the prize is. The prize is that you need to submit the best application, whether it's a city application, a state application. You need to have, again, you're a good security design, whatever section you need, because until you win that license, you can't use anything else that you see at these shows. And it's the same thing that I always communicate, to keep focused on that component of it. Once that happens, everything else falls into place.
And I think it's a great piece of advice. That is a wonderful piece of advice, and that's gonna be very key for our listeners. And for our listeners, don't forget Tony's speaking at 2 p.m. Friday, March 18th at NECANN Boston. If you have not seen him speak before, I would highly recommend it. It is a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you, and I can't wait until Friday night.
It's gonna be fun times as always. I look forward to a great meal. And then also too, I know it's on the bottom, but Chris and I have our seminar Saturday morning, 9 a.m. How to raise your social capital to raise capital. And don't worry, we will be done before 12 p.m. before Steve D'Angelo, the keynote speaker, is presenting. So you do not worry, you will not miss that.
That's right. We'll absolutely make sure you're not going to miss that. David and I have worked very closely on getting the timing of our presentation down, so you won't even miss a second of it, and you'll have enough time to get in there and enjoy that presentation. So, any final words, Tony, before we wrap up?
No, I'm counting on the Boston weather to hold up, and last year when I went, it was beautiful. And that's, if we can get a couple of beautiful days in Boston, that is definitely a town that you can enjoy yourself. And the day before that is St. Patrick's Day. So that's even going to add even more this year to that. So looking forward, as always, to the NECANN Boston event.
All right,
yes,
great.
Absolutely. Us too. So, Tony, thank you so much for coming on and spending time with us today. For all those watching and listening right now, please head over to Tony's website, sapphirerisk.com. You can use the link in the video description and the show notes below, as well as if you would like to purchase tickets for our workshop, How to Raise Your Social Capital, Raise Capital, which you can get by heading over to NECANNextlevel.com. Once again, use the links in the description or the show notes to get direct access and buy those tickets. And make sure you catch Tony. He's presenting too. So, and you got to do that. You got to go over to NECANN.com and you got to get your tickets to get there and be part of it. And hopefully you'll see us on St. Patty's Day. Maybe you'll see us at the restaurant on Friday. But we'll all be there. We'll all be walking around and happy to meet and talk to anybody along the way. So it's going to be a great event. We're really happy to be doing this. Once again, Tony, appreciate you taking the time to come on today and talk with all of us.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You got it. So we will see you guys next time and see you in NECANN Boston, happening March 18th through the 20th. And especially sign up for that workshop, NECANNextlevel.com, March 19th, Dr. Dave and I, 9 a.m. Cheers, everyone. Rock it.